So maybe you can put any other background. Thank you. So I was saying I'm the moderator for today's seminar, and my name is Jane Mutune, a lecturer at the Wangari Maathai Institute for Peace and Environmental Studies. So this is how we are going to proceed. I'll start by introducing the presenter of the day, Mr. Abel Kiprono, and also give a brief plan of what we are how we are going to execute the seminar. So let me start by introducing the presenter of the day, Mr. Abel Kiprono, who is a Masters of Science a student at the Wangari Maathai Institute for Peace and Environmental Studies. He is pursuing a degree in environmental governance. I happen to be one of his supervisors, and other supervisors are Professor Mudama and also Dr. Cairo from Kenya Marine Institute based in Mombasa. And Mr. Kiprono is in his second year of his master's program, who is undertaking a research, or has been undertaking a research under the title Assessment of Effectiveness of the Mangrove Restoration Project along the Kenyan coast. And that's how come he's working with the So Kiprono, this is the plan for our today's seminar. I'll give you about 20 minutes, 20 to 25 minutes. Then after that, we are going to have questions and answer sessions, including comments and also compliments for Mr. Kiprono. Then you'll be documenting all the questions that you receive from the seminar, and then you are going to respond. But as soon as we are done with Mr. Kiprono's presentation, we'll have a discussion who is going to critically analyze and present the core issues that Mr. Kiprono has handled in his thesis, in an attempt to tell us what is the state of restoration of the mangrove forest. And that is Madam Eunice, who is a PhD student at Wangari Maathai Institute. So, Mr. Kiprono, Abel, are you ready?
Hello.
Abel?
Hello, everyone.
Could Mr. Wafula please mute your mic? Mr. Kelvin Wafula, please mute your mic. Thank you.
Yes, Kiprono, kindly carry on.
All right.
Kiprono, you are muted. Please unmute your mic to talk.
It's already.
I think you are connected to two gadgets. You need to connect on one and use one, not two. That's why you have that. Just connect to one device and switch off the other one, please. Then unmute yourself.
All right, I think you can now get hear me.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Kiprono, kindly proceed. And if you are able to present your slides, the better, but kindly proceed. Now the echo is gone.
Presentation. Okay, just a minute. I'm trying to present the work, and I'm not getting clearly the right window to open the presentation, the PowerPoint.
Ndio nataka tuone present now.
Hello, Professor Mudama. Hello, Prof.
Yes, please. Yes, Daktari.
Do you think Kiprono could proceed without the PowerPoint presentation, without presenting on his screen, for the interest of time?
Yes, I think he can proceed, and I will try to project from my laptop if he has some challenges.
Yes.
I can project. I will download it and then project as he continues. So I agree with you.
Yes, Kiprono. Kiprono, are you there? Kiprono?
Yes, I think I can proceed with.
Yes, proceed, and then Professor Mudama will be projecting to the screen as you proceed. Kindly carry on now.
All right. My topic was to assess the effectiveness of mangrove restoration projects along the Kenyan coast, and my supervisors were Dr. Jane Mutune, Professor Nzioka Mudama, and Dr. James Kairo. So mangroves covers mangrove forest are trees which grows intertidal areas, and they provide goods and services that are important to human and coastal communities. And also, mangroves also provide a variety of goods and services which are of broad scale to economic importance, and also protecting the shoreline and coastal communities. And despite this despite these benefits, mangroves also provide the community with the coastal and the blue economy, and I think now I can use the projection. Sorry for the technical hitch. Yeah, so they are among the most productive ecosystems on Earth, and these mangroves are very effective in coastal protection and protecting people. Next slide, please. Yeah, so mangroves cover a wide range of cover in terms of cover, and I think Professor Mudama, this is another PowerPoint. This is not the exact PowerPoint that I was intending to use, so maybe I can just use the other one.
I think you just proceed because we are not able to project the other one, if you don't mind.
Okay. So mangroves also, as I've highlighted the benefits that they provide, they are threatened and they are degraded at an alarming rate. So there is need for restoring these ecosystems. So efforts to restore mangroves at the earlier efforts have failed. So there is need to document the failures and what really causes this failure in the mangrove ecosystem. So the problem statement was mangroves cover a threatened natural ecosystem, and in Kenya it covers a total of 61,000 hectares, and between 1985 and 2000 mangroves were lost. 18% of mangroves were lost, and at the present state 40% of mangroves are perceived to be degraded. So efforts to restore these mangroves at the Kenyan coast have presented mixed results and a repeated cycle of failure, as the past restoration efforts have presented yielded little output than expected. So there is that is repeated cycle of failure over time. So there is that scanty documentation of growth performance and of replanted mangroves along the coast. The research objectives were to assess the effectiveness of mangrove restoration projects along the coast, and the specific objectives were to document the location, area extent, and the choice of mangrove species along the coast, to evaluate growth performance of the planted mangroves in terms of survival rates, tree height, diameter, secondary succession along the coast. Also, the third objective was to assess community perception of mangrove reforestation projects. So, why do we really needed to do this study to assess the performance of growth of mangroves along the Kenyan coast? The study documented the challenges facing the success, and also it provides feedback that allows adjustment to enhance success of future restoration practices. And also it's important because it will inform the successful restoration, which will in turn increase the mangrove resource base and also enhance the sustainability of goods and services to people, as well as also the national government in terms of blue economy and the general trading of the mangrove products. Also, it provides a natural best solution to climate change and achievement of the Paris Agreement, and also the global priorities for sustainable development goals and the UN Decade of Ecosystem Restoration. And these are the priorities that comes in the global priorities that we need to mainstream to our local and present policies that enhances the achievement of sustainability of forests. The study area was conducted in 4 counties in Kenya. That is Mombasa, Kwale, Kilifi, and Kwale, Tana River, and Lamu. And the mangroves covers bays, estuaries, and creeks along the Kenyan coast. As I had earlier told you that these are the trees that grows in the intertidal areas. So the mangroves, at least 20% of mangroves cover along the Kenyan coast has been lost. That was between 1985 to 2005. And efforts to restore these mangrove forests were initiated earlier in Gazi Bay with an aim to transform the degraded stands into higher stands of productivity with improved ecological integrity. And these efforts have been replicated along the coast. Yeah, next slide, please. So the research approach involved vegetation survey and social survey. And in our vegetation survey, we used a systematic sampling of 10 by 10 plots where we established it was established in the replanted mangroves, and the survival rates was limited to 0.25 to 5 years, and for the structural attributes that was for adult mangroves were established in 5-year-old mangroves. So the number of plots ranged 1 to 4, and also the area extent. We used the aerial survey or the ArcGIS software and matrix estimation to estimate the area. And for the social survey, we did the study. I did a survey of the community, individual interviews, and the key informants with a total of 106 samples, and yeah, 106 sample size. So the data collection, the GPS tool was used to sorry, please, the slides are yes, the geolocation of the study site was taken by the GPS tool. So for the data analysis, the ArcGIS software was used to develop a geolocation map, and allometric equations were used to calculate for the biomass. And for the mean growth parameters, we tested with the Minitab software package to test the significant difference. Also, we use the Shannon Biodiversity Index to determine the diversity of organisms, or the microbenthic organisms. Those are crabs and mollusks in the planted site. And the social survey, the data were organized with the SPSS and software and analyzed through descriptive statistics. And the graphs were presented with using the graphical presentation of functional analysis of Microsoft Excel. Our results and discussions. So from the study, the study mapped a total of 19 project sites with a total of 53 restoration attempts. And the area range between 0.5 to 20 hectares, and an estimating to a total of 93.5 hectares. So a total of 19 major project areas along the coast were mapped, and the survival rates. Yeah, so out of the 53 efforts, the survival rates range from 0 to 97.8%, and each and every range varied with a number of attempts. We had 5 attempts which had no surviving plants, and also 1 to 20 at 7 attempts. So generally the performance in terms of survival rates were higher in Mombasa as compared to the other counties. So Mombasa led in terms of survival rates of the replanted mangroves. And from our observation, from the study observation, we found that species and sites mismatch were the common causes of failure along the Kenyan coast, because mangroves, the communities tend to plant the mangroves in the wrong sites or wrong topographical areas, and also the change in site conditions, and as the coastal region or the intertidal area has a number of it's a dynamic ecosystem with external and internal factors which affects the general ecosystem. So from the first photo, that is the issue of species mismatch and site selection, whereby the mangroves were planted in the wrong site. And the second photo the second photo is an accumulation of algae, which at the end, it ended up suppressing the planted seedlings. Also, we have issues of coastal erosion because of the waves, and it ended up eroding the roots of the planted mangroves. Next slide, please. Also, we have a number of issues that include the trampling by livestock, also the inappropriate planting techniques, that affected the growth of young planted mangroves. At the end, it reduced the survival rates. And at the end, also, we had the success of these ecosystems. And in terms of structural attributes, these were for the adult mangroves. And our study found that there was a significant difference in terms of the structural parameters of the replanted mangroves, in terms of height increment, the diameter increment. Those were the annual increment. So the ANOVA test revealed that there was a significant difference because of this was attributed to species and also the age and the intensities of planted mangroves. Also, we had the biomass increment and the faunal succession, whereby the number of the number of recruited juveniles varied across the replanted sites because of the environmental conditions. And the community perception, the 77% of the respondents say that the participating in the reforestation activities of mangroves was a hard task, unlike 22%. This is because the mangrove ecosystem is a dynamic ecosystem with mud, and each and every individual his or her own perception in terms of how they feel the environment was. And also we had the major objectives or the purpose of the mangrove restoration programs, which were highlighted as the reforestation of mangroves and also community development, which go hand in hand with the income generation activities. And motivation to plant mangroves were motivated by the two major factors that include the ecological and economic factors, which motivated the community to participate in mangrove restoration. In terms of the participation, also we had various stakeholders which participated in mangrove restoration, including the government agencies, the NGOs, and the community groups. And the key highlighted challenges were the inadequate resources, those are funds, and also we had the inadequate or lack of knowledge about the mangrove ecology or how to the mangrove silviculture, and also the issues with the illegal harvesting of the mature planted mangroves, which prevented a long-term achievement of the success. Also the grassroots politics about the issues with the governance and the community elites, whereby some of the communities who felt that they were not involved in mangrove activities. The next. Yeah, so from the study, we had the general amount of, or estimate of an area was low compared to the other regions, like in Vietnam, in Asia. So the mangrove restoration in Kenya is still small scale. Also, the causes of restoration failures were attributed to key ecological settings and ignorance to best management practices that can be done by the communities. Also, we had a variation in the growth parameters, and this was attributed to different species, age, and also the site conditions of the mangrove sites. Also, we found that the community participation play a key role in success of restoration programs, and incentives can be used to enhance or to buy the willingness of the communities to participate in mangrove restoration. Also, the weak actor relation compounded to the restoration failures, whereby, for example, given the donor-driven agencies at the direct control over the mangrove restoration activities. So from the research, we recommend that the techniques of propagation to reduce or to enhance the number of mangrove species that can be planted, the relevant agencies could explore other opportunities to propagate other mangrove species, and also application of ecological mangrove restoration principles, which are the scientific approaches. And if we can integrate with the indigenous knowledge and traditional knowledge, can improve the success. And also there was need to do a long-term monitoring to ensure that not only the number of plants which are seen by the communities, but the long-term impact of the ecological integrity. And the policy implication from the study is that there is need to strengthen the collaboration between the government and the NGOs and other private entities, because the mangrove restoration is not a stand-alone initiative. Also promote the payment of ecosystem services to incentivize the community and also buy in the willingness to participate. And also the government agencies should invest in training and increase the number of forest extension officers as technical experts. And more importantly is to create an ethical imperative to ensure that each and every individual has that ownership of protecting and conserving the environment, particularly the mangrove forests. The next slide, please. Yeah, so the study was funded by the International Climate Initiative and the Nature Conservancy through the Kenya Marine and Fisheries Institute. And I want to thank them for the support they gave me through the study. Thank you.
Dr. Mutune, can you hear me? Dr. Mutune? I think as she is connecting, I would like to call on Eunice, the discussant, to go ahead and present our discussion. Eunice, you may go ahead, please.
Sorry, Professor Mudama, I experienced a technical hit. Now you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, apologies for that, and I agree with you. Now we give an opportunity to the discussant, Eunice Mudhoni Kumunga, to present our discussions of Kiprono's thesis. Karibu, Eunice.
Okay, thank you very much, and I really appreciate even for being chosen to have been a discussant. Okay, I've looked through the report that was presented to me for Mr. Kiprono, but first of all, let me acknowledge that from the presentation that I've listened from Mr. Kiprono, it seemed that I did not get the final updated thesis, but nevertheless, I'll still discuss what I got because I've seen things which I had seen, like I would comment upon, and they were not appearing in the report that I have. But looking at the work that has been done by Mr. Kiprono, first of all, I appreciate the effort that he has put into the work. And looking at it, when I look at, first of all, the objectives that have been put forward, the objectives seem to be too many clumped up together, because like the first objective from the report that I received, it seemed to be like they are 3 in 1. And so when he goes to try and cover them through the thesis, it becomes almost impossible because there are too many things that are mixed up together. But when I look at the degradation, the thesis does not come out very clearly, showing us the extent of degradation of Kenya, the mangrove forest in Kenya, and why we need to restore it. The problem statement is also not very clear, because when we talk of successful mangrove indicators, first of all, the thesis does not explain to us where the success indicators are coming from. So it seems that there is some work that needs to be done to be able to substantiate that particular part. We have discussed the threat to mangrove forests. We looked at the human-induced pressure, and then we looked at climate change as if the only natural cause of mangrove is climate change. So I think we should also be able to expound on that. Then looking through the mangrove restoration as a tool, the thesis does not actually substantiate properly how we can be able to use it. We have looked at issues like approaches to mangrove restoration. We have the natural regeneration and the artificial regeneration. When we look at the artificial regeneration, we are limited to what we are discussing as the artificial regeneration. I think we should be able to expound much more on that. And then we have a terminology that has been used across called mixed results. I was thinking that this is to be able to give us specific results, not mixed, because if then we are not being unmixed by the findings, it means that we are getting lost somewhere. We should stick to those that support our thesis, because we have objectives for the thesis. So we should be looking at the objectives for the thesis, and then maybe we can talk of other people who contrast our objectives and then be able to support what is the objective of our thesis. Then I looked at the conceptual framework. The conceptual framework seemed to be having some of the raised issues which are hanging, not connected to anything. So as a reader to the thesis, it does not actually flow. I cannot be able to interpret it with somebody explaining to me exactly what is meant. Then I looked also at the materials and methods. When I look at the description of the study area, I think it has not been given in point form. We give latitudes as in, we don't give northings and eastings, we have given as in latitudes, the southings together. You see, when you talk of having used GPS, when you pick points using GPS, it means you pick a point with an easting and northing. So when you present it, it should also be the same way, so that any other person who is familiar with measurements can be able to locate themselves. Then looking at the research design and methodology, the thesis completely does not talk of any design. I think that when we have somehow forgotten about it, it has not been mentioned. And then when you look at the methodology, it should be telling us on how the data was collected or generated and how it was analyzed. Now, when I looked through the research design and methodology, I think we need to substantiate on some things, because even when we looked at the main thing you talked about was the 10 by 10 quadrants. We don't know how they were sampled, or everything that was a quadrant was being taken into consideration. And then we looked, there's some subtopic in the report that I got about macrofauna and composition. I did not see how this part actually is applying to our objectives at all, because this one is talking about crabs and mollusks. I don't know whether they affect or they feed on the mangroves or something. I tried to connect it completely to the thesis, but I was not able. And then I also realized that some of the figures that have been put, or equations, once you print the document, they just disappear. I think you have to look at that, because eventually you have to print the document. They completely disappear. Some of the figures do not have the source. Then something else that I looked at, the results. You gave our results in ANOVA, in F. When I looked at the degrees of freedom, they were not adding up, because you have 5 degrees of freedom against 17. If the first degree of freedom is the one which gives us between groups, and even if I try to compute, it means that the degrees of freedom are coming to decimals and they cannot be in decimals. But anyway, that one is something that you can discuss, or you can discuss with the supervisors. And then I looked at some of the results. Some of the things that are put in the results seem to have been should be in the discussion part. And specifically, this one I can be able to point out to you. We can talk off this discussion because there are things that I have already highlighted. And then I also looked at the way the results have been written. I think results should be written in past tense. Only what has been quoted by other people should be present. But most of the results here you have given in present form. Then when we look at the discussions, like now the extent of mangrove restoration effort in Kenya, here it does not tell us. Like now you said cumulative less than 100 hectares of mangrove. The report I have does not show us the extent of degradation or the rate of loss. And then we have compared with other countries. So it looks somehow disjointed because we have not already cleared our case. And mind you, this was not mentioned in the results. So it seemed like some of the discussion here is not covered by any results. So I think if you have the results and you're not able to put them down here, you will only discuss what you have given us in the results, because every time you mention something in the discussion, you want to refer back to the results. So if you discuss something here and is not mentioned in the results, it should be
it's university,
down
for our
clearly.
university.
And I think, having said that, also, when we look at the recommendations that have been given here have not been derived from the thesis findings. Yeah, they could be varied, but I think for the purpose of this study, we should only give recommendations based on the findings that we have been able to establish based on the findings. And even when I look at the challenges that you have mentioned, most of the challenges were not mentioned. Like, for instance, algae. There is nowhere in the results that I came across anything to do with algae. So if you found it in the field work and maybe you forgot to mention it, it should be mentioned in the results, so that when you come to discussion, even when you make your conclusion, it should be based basically on your thesis. Because when we talk of restoration of the mangrove, we expect that we are going to pick these results, and those people who are dealing with marine, they are going to think that it can head somewhere. I think that is a much I can be able to say, but the comments that I've written, we can meet with Kiprono and I'll share them with him. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Eunice, for your detailed comments. I'm sure, Mr. Kiprono, you've taken a note of them, and because also it is a requirement that you note all the comments that you receive from the participants in the platform. And importantly, as I listened to Eunice, our comments are touching on the objectives that we need to make them more smarter or more smart. Issues on methodology. Importantly, we explain how the data was collected, how it was analyzed. Those could be the issues. And the results should be tied to the objectives, the specific objectives. And also we discuss them in the context of those objectives, but importantly, tie them, you remember your degree is environmental governance, with existing, rather already documented materials. So now I want to open the floor for questions and answers that will go to helping Mr. Kiprono improve on his thesis draft. I think it is at the advanced stage of being submitted for examination, but there is a lot of room for improvement and also sharpening his expertise in environmental governance. So kindly, if you are not fit to put your comment or question around, please put off your microphone if you don't mind, and also maybe your video, so that we reduce on maybe the amount of data that we utilize. So now I want to pick questions and answers. I'll start with about 2 questions from the participants, and then Mr. Kiprono, you will try to respond in a very brief and manner. Yes, who is ready?
Yes, good afternoon, Dr. This is Abdi.
Yes, Mr. Abdul, welcome. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the session. I just wanted to make a few comments. Under the social survey that we talked about, was there anything about gender dimension of use and management of the mangrove ecosystem? And here, you mentioned vegetation survey and social survey, and I did not hear anything about the gender dimensions that be relevant, and also theory study based on maybe this. I didn't mention the theory. Did you get me?
Did you get?
Abel.
Did you get that?
Yes, I get your question, Mr. Abdi.
Okay.
About the
It's okay. If you got it, Abel, that is okay. If you got it, that's okay. Let us take one more. Then I also read another one in our chat so that you can respond to 3, and then we take another lot. So, Abdi, kindly put off your mic. Turn off your mic.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So who wants to?
Hello, Dr. Motune.
Yes, Daktari, karibu. Hello.
Hello, thank you so much. And I also want to thank Kiprono for the good presentation. However, I just have 2 questions. So I don't know whether I got it right that he mapped 50 sites. Maybe he'll correct me. And in those sites, which were the most preferred mangrove species for restoration? And again, which mangroves gave the highest survival rates? And did you try to establish why? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So, Mr. Kiprono, on our chat, I have a question from Mercy Amai. She has 5 of them, but I'll pick one so that you respond to that of Mr. Abdi, Dr. Wangondu, and Mercy. Let me pick the most outstanding one, that what is the academic gap, or rather the research gap, I think she meant so, that the thesis is addressing. So you could respond to those 3. The last time I checked, Mr. Odhiambo was a very good friend of yours. Odhiambo, kindly, you could go through the charts and record all the questions and comments for Mr. Kiprono. Thank you. Kiprono, carry on. Unmute your mic, Kiprono.
Yeah, for the first question, yeah, by Abdi on the use and management of mangroves. There are frameworks for management of mangroves, which has been put forward. That is the national management, and it was developed in the year 2017. So that is the document that guides the management and use of mangroves in Kenya. And in the past, there has been, the mangrove has not been optimized in terms of management compared to the terrestrial ecosystems until recently, when the management, the national management plan was developed in the year 2017. That is now it's providing now the way forward in terms of mangrove conservation, and now it's scaling up the issues with the restoration activities. It's also supported by the Supreme Law of the Kenya about the public participation, and also we have the Forest Management Act, which provides the participation of communities in terms of management. Also, along the Kenyan coast, we have a number of community-based organizations and the CFS, where the communities participate and they have that agreement with the relevant entities. That is the Kenya Forest Service, and they co-manage these forests together, and also the community-based organizations which they have intervened to protect the ecological integrity of mangroves. In terms of gender dimensions, the study did not look into the gender in terms of mangrove management, but rather who are participating in terms of the motivation and the overall community built up to which participate in mangrove restoration. Also, there was a question on mapping. Yeah, the study mapped a total of 19 project sites in 4 counties. Those were we targeted the major sites where the mangroves have been established by the local communities in assistance with the government and the other non-governmental organizations. So we mapped the major 19 sites along the Kenyan coast in the 4 counties, excluding Kilifi, and the 53 sites were the attempts, because in each and every site we could find a number of attempts. For example, 4 or 5 a number of restoration attempts that has been carried on within a project area. So we had 19 project areas where mangroves have been initiated, mangrove restoration activities have been initiated. Also, the question on which mangrove species was mostly preferred. One of the mangrove species that the study found which was mostly preferred is the Rhizophora mucronata. That was the most preferred mangrove species for planting, followed by the species called Seriops tegal. And these species were mostly preferred by the communities because of its ease of handliness, and also the fact that the mangroves of Kenya, the major species which dominate the region are 3 species, which include the Rhizophora mucronata, the Seriops tegal, and Avicennia marina. So those were the dominant species which were preferred by the communities because of their ease in handling and the dominant across the region. Also, the question about the survival rates, about the mixed results. The mixed results was about the success and the failures. So, for instance, the study found that there are a number of failed restoration efforts and those which had success at the end. Yeah, and then the question by Mercy on the academic gap. Like initially I had mentioned about the mangroves, globally, earlier restoration efforts presented these mixed results, like successes and failures. And in Kenya, the degradation rates are still going on, and efforts to restore these mangroves have yielded low output. So our academic gap was in the planted mangroves in Kenya. The first initiation of the mangrove restoration activities was done in Gasi, that is in the year 1991. And over the years, because of the management issues that supports conservation and restoration, the restoration activities have been replicated along the Kenyan coast. So at the end, these restoration activities have not yielded much output as expected. And also we have the aspect whereby the earlier restored areas in Gasi, most of the research done on the mangrove plantations have only dominated in one region, that is in Gasi. There's little documentation of the performance of other mangrove, the performance of mangrove, replanted mangrove sites across the region. So that is what informed this study, that we needed to do an assessment of other mangrove sites to validate this approach of mangrove restoration as a management tool. Can it have an impact to the ecological integrity by community participation in mangrove restoration? So that was the academic gap that informed this study.
Okay, so we'll take 3 more questions, and then we also read what has been sent on the chat. If whoever has sent them doesn't maybe get an opportunity to ask them. So 3 more. So Mr. Kiprono, one of the questions in the chat is you let the participants know what theoretical framework was used in your studies. And then Judy J, what is your take on the mangrove planting going on in the country by the community? What is your take on the mangrove planting going on in the country by the community? And do you think species preference could affect ecological integrity? Do you think species preference, I guess, of mangrove could affect ecological integrity in the forest? And if so, why? So any question for Kiprono before you respond to those?
Hello.
Yes.
I have a question.
Carry
My
on.
name is Dr. Wanjiro Gichuhe. Yes, I'm with Population Studies Research Institute. And I wanted to ask Kiprono and tell him thank you for his work. It is quite interesting to know what is going at the coast and the mangroves. My comment was, one, he says that there is high survival rate of mangroves in Mombasa. And I did not hear him explain, why, compared to Tana River, Ramu, and Kwale. No, Kwale probably was not included. And then I wanted to find out, Kiprono, whether you found a significant difference. Was it significant? And the other comment is on you talked about grassroots politics interfering with the whole work of mangroves. Could you elaborate on that, because you had a social survey, which I didn't hear a lot of the results on that? And I guess the other comments I have are as by the discussant about the methodology and design of the study. So I rest my case there, and thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. One more question. One more.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, Dr. Mutune. This is Dr. Uor from Southeastern Kenya University.
Yes, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Abel, congratulations. However, I would really want to know from Abel, having worked in the mangroves, how long does it really take for one to realize restoration? Because I tend to feel restoration is a really big topic, and to achieve it, one has to maybe achieve certain criteria. So from Abel's experience and his study, do we talk of restoration, or we talk of rehabilitation and maybe something else? Because I tend to feel to achieve complete restoration and bring back ecological integrity is a process. And has this been achieved? If so, in which areas? Because like in Gazi, mangrove planting has been going on for a while. Do we say we've restored Gazi as a system? Thank you.
Okay, so Abel, you could respond to those first. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, you can respond if you have, of course, answers to them on it. Is it now?
Okay. The the theoretical framework, that was the first question I was asking. So the theory that informed this study was the theory of change. Yeah, the theory of change talks about the monitoring and evaluation of project of the community projects. So in our study, it was well informing because there is that aspect of monitoring a project for a given time in relevant to the achievement of the objectives. So they need to monitor a project given that the stipulated objectives are the first stage before embarking on mangrove restoration. That gives an opportunity to have the feedback and to allow adjustment of activities. So if there is any challenge that comes in within a given period, it can be rectified. So that is a theory of change that allows the changes or adjustment of the previous set of actions in a given project. And the next question was about the mangrove planting. Do you think mangrove planting is a management tool, or can community continue planting mangroves? Okay, from my study about the mangrove planting, the reason for the study was to ascertain which approach can better ensure the restoration of mangroves, given that 40% of Kenyan mangroves are in degraded conditions. And planting of mangroves from the study has shown that there is that success and failures. And from my perspective, I will recommend that the science can inform these mangrove plantations, because mangrove is a dynamic ecosystem, and without a good approach, for example, involving the science to gauge whether the site is appropriate for planting, it will be a waste of time and resources, because at the end the project may fail. But if we approach mangrove planting with where we integrate science to inform the rehabilitation of a given degraded site, can enhance that community buy-in. Like the community will be participating in mangrove restoration activities, that such that they can build that ethical imperative to ensure to participate in conservation. Yeah, so that is my perspective as we advocate mangrove planting by the communities, is that there is need to ensure that whenever there is a planting, the prior activities first to assess the site before planting, to avoid waste of resources and time. And also the species preference, how does it affect the ecological integrity of mangroves? Okay, mangroves are zoning patterns. They are zoning pattern. So you can find a place has been dominated by one mangrove species. So given that if the area had a number of more than 3 species, and planting one species that site, it will not be of good to regaining or rehabilitating the ecological integrity, or returning the services or the ecological functionality back. So it will be rather good to use more than one species, which the system had. If the system had more than one species, we can try to bring back that ecological integrity in the past, rather than just doing one species which have been dominated across the region. Also, the question about the high survival rate in Mombasa. Mombasa recorded the high survival rate compared to the other counties, because the study found that Mombasa region, there are established groups which they participate in mangrove restoration, like they commit their time to mangrove restoration. For example, I can give an example of one of the community-based organizations in Mombasa, Mikindani, whereby they plant their mangroves and they follow up. They have post-care activities which enable the mangroves to grow. So the reason is that they don't plant mangroves and leave. They plant and grow them. So that is the reason which made mangroves planting in Mombasa to be high compared to other sites. Given an example in Kwale, we have some of regions whereby the site has been altered. So planting that site will just bring a lot of failures, or will lead a lot of failure of reforestation projects. For example, in Jimbo, where the site was excavated for salt pans, and so that site has already been altered. So trying to bring or to return that site is difficult because the site has already been altered, and also the sites of Mwache, whereby we have the issue with land use activities, has altered the ecosystem. So bringing that ecosystem back will need more, maybe scientific measures compared to just going and plant mangroves, which will lead to failure. And another question was the grassroots politics, about the participation, who participates and who does not participate in mangrove deforestation activities. Yeah, it was just a few cases whereby the communities, others maybe they are left out of reforestation activities, while others are involved actively. So that was what I meant for the grassroots politics, which is about the participation of the communities. And the question on restoration, whether to use restoration or rehabilitation. Yeah, I agree with the need to distinct, because I can say that rehabilitation is a subset of restoration, because first of all, when an ecosystem is degraded, what happens is we rehabilitate, because restoration is now bringing back the actual ecosystem, which may take a longer time to come back, and also sometimes they may not come back. And maybe using that term restoration as an effective wording is that when the two mangrove ecosystems, the planted site and the natural sites, whereby they can now be referenced. The replanted site can be assessed and the natural site can be assessed. Now, when the ecosystem functionality is now maybe the same, that is now we can say the ecosystem has been restored, because the initial properties of the ecological functionality of the ecosystem has been brought back, which is the same with the natural ecosystem. Yeah, I hope
Yeah. Thank you, Kiprono. That is a good attempt in addressing the question, and in addition to the final comment, you have an addition from Dr. Wangondo that community participation, of course, besides community participation, site characteristics and choice of species, they equally contribute to the success of the restoration, of course, besides other factors. So, Kiprono, are you there? Okay, so we can take 2 more questions for Kiprono, or 3 more. Hello? Someone can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, is Kiprono around? I think I saw it's like his network hanged at some point. Kiprono, are you there?
Let me reach out to him.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Yeah, so we wait for Kiprono to return. Maybe we can take the questions for him so that when he comes, I can read out to him to save on time, if there are any, including comments. Okay.
Hello, Daktari.
Yes, Mr. Tampushi, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I had written on the platform, but maybe I can speak about it.
Sorry?
I wrote a note on the platform.
Yeah,
Maybe
okay. Now carry on. Now that you wrote, yeah.
Yes. Now,
read it out.
maybe first to appreciate Kiprono for the presentation.
Yes.
And mine was just a comment because he has discussed quite a number of issues affecting the mangrove ecosystem, their coast. And personally, okay, there are so many other anthropogenic activities or human activities, including the development of very big projects along the coastal line, which includes the LAPSET project, the SGR, the Dongokudu bypass, and all these projects were dependent on the natural resource from the Indian Ocean, particularly the scooping of sand, which resulted with a lot of dust pollution, possibly erosion, human population increase, disturbance of the mangrove ecosystems, and many, many others. So I just wanted maybe to make a comment if Kiprono can check whether it can include the impacts of the effects of such kind of activities and maybe possibly put up a recommendation on how best can be done to minimize the effect of such effects from the project. Thank you very much.
Okay, point noted for Kiprono as we wait for him to return. Thank you, Tampushi.
Yes. May I jump
yes.
in, Jen?
Yes, Prof.
Of course, I have come late because I was in another meeting, but I have listened to most of the questions to Abel, and that is all there is to the work. The reasons can be presented in Kiprono or some other departments. Obviously, if you have aspect of governance before I joined in, I would want to know from him if he has answered that. He doesn't have to explain anymore. But I would like to know from him the governance process, the governance policy, the governance institutions, and the practices that, according to his study, promote or hinder, the ecosystem restoration, in the areas that, or in the area where he carried out his work. Where is governance? Because his MSc is in environmental governance. What I have had so far fits well in terms of management of mangrove ecosystems, but the governance, I would need to hear from him how much of it he did.
Okay, yeah, that is quite important. Kiprono, you want to respond to that because I know you are a wealth of knowledge on environmental governance. So professor is asking where are the environmental governance aspect principles and of course relating to institutional governance that may affect the status or even the restoration of the mangrove forest in the coast. So articulate that in the context of your study.
And may I add formal and informal governance?
Yeah, so sorry for the technical itch. I just realized that I was answering the questions earlier and seems I was already out. Yeah, so I hope I answered the initial questions that before the technical itch.
Yes,
yeah.
you did.
Okay, so the issue with the governance frameworks, and from the study, yeah, the study found that there is a mixed approach to mangrove restoration or rehabilitation. Yeah, because we documented the agencies that have been participating in mangrove reforestation activities along the Kenyan coast. And we documented all the government efforts, the non-governmental efforts, the local initiatives, and also the funding agencies. Yeah, they have come together to scale up reforestation activities. Now, the aspect of governance comes in when that issue of the participation, the institutional frameworks, given a community-based organization, how are they allowing the community to participate in reforestation activities? And also the coming together of both the governmental agencies that include the Kenya Forest Service, we have the Kenya Wildlife Service, we have the Kenya Marine and Fisheries Resource Institute, we have the KFRI, the Kenya Forest Research Institute. So in terms of governance, it was quite clear that there is that concerted efforts that are coming into mangrove reforestation, and also the issue with the blue carbon ecosystems are being scaled up at the governance level to support the community to participate in reforestation activities. So the study found quite clear that through that mixed approach by all these entities, from the government to non-governmental organizations, there is that from the national level to local scale level, the communities are participating in reforestation activities.
Jane?
Yes, Professor.
Jane, can I follow up a little bit?
Yes, Prof. Carry on.
Now, Abel, mangrove, the planting of mangroves is being done by local communities. And I suppose local communities are organized. Can somebody put off their mic, please? The communities are organized into groups. If I'm wrong, please let me know. And for each group, there is some form of leadership. For instance, a steering committee, management committee. I hear the future professor speaking somewhere. Now, how are members recruited? How are the committees appointed? And for the officials, like say the chairman, if they're there, how are they elected? Are they selected? How democratic? how just, how participatory are those? That is one. Number two, you've mentioned government agencies and non-NGOs. How are the policies being implemented? Is it top-down, or are these policies that have been shared, they have inputs from as many stakeholders as possible? And is there equity? Are there any aspects of the implementation of the policies, the regulations, or institutional structures that promote or hinder the planting of mangroves? Thank you. We can't hear you. Unmute your mic.
Yeah, I've already done. So in terms of community participation, we have the supreme or the guiding management plan, which was in place since 2017. That is the National Mangrove Management Plan, which guides the mangrove conservation and restoration along the Kenyan coast. And with this plan, the communities have been involved through the formation of the forest management agreements, whereby the community creates the community forest associations with the help of the Kenya Forest Services, Kenya Forest Service. So through that input and that agreement, the community participate in creating their committees, which they will run the conservation activities and reforestation activities in terms of the CFA. And also the community-based organizations which participate in mangrove conservation and reforestation, they have also their committees which they gear in or they participate in mangrove conservation and reforestation activities. So in terms of the committees and how they are developed is upon the communities to involve the gender-based committee to ensure that the women are involved in reforestation activities and conservation also. And also the policies that guides the mangroves at local level. Yes, also we have the bylaws whereby the community or the CBOs or the community forest associations have, which guides the management of mangrove forests. So that is how the community participates in mangrove conservation and reforestation activities. I don't know if I have answered your question, Prof.
I think that's okay. Thanks.
Okay, so thank you, Kiprono. Now, do we have any more questions, comments for Kiprono before we bring the question and answer session to a close?
Yes, Dr.
Yes, Selma.
I just have a few comments to make. Since Cohen is recording the conference or the seminar, I'm praying that he will be able to share with Abel. And then the other thing is, for the sake of the governance that has been asked from Abel, I think he needs to add a section on governance in his a section in the results, how the governance system works and the legal and institutional frameworks and how they are arranged in that area, so that he avoids the the duplication and the confusion that may exist when one is reading the thesis. And then additionally, he had mentioned of the theoretical framework that he used, but he didn't tell us it is by who and when was it developed. If it was his, then he needs to indicate that in the thesis, and that will be okay. I think I have that for now.
Okay, Elma, thank you. Any more questions, comments? You don't want to lock anyone out with a question or comment?
May I comment?
Yes, Michael, please do.
This is Michael, Quality Assurance, University of Nairobi. I'm also interested in reforestation of our country, and I also happen to have worked in the areas that my brother Kiprono is doing research, and therefore I'm aware that there are groups in Wasini Island, there are women groups that are really conserving the mangrove. So the connection between ecotourism, conservation of mangrove, socioeconomic empowerment of the people at the coast, and how probably conservation of the local forest, including mangrove, can be part of their economic activity so that they can see food on the table as they conserve environment. Probably my brother Kiprono can be able to check around those groups that are conserving environment and attracting tourism in it, so that they are able now to conserve the environment and also get some economic value in the activities that they do. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. I hope, Kiprono, you've taken note of the comment. Any other comments, the final one, if any? Okay, so I think at this, let me read this great session and good feedback. That is from Washeke. I'll want to take this opportunity to thank you all for contributing to Mr. Kiprono's work. This is part of student-led seminars that take place at the Wangari Maathai Institute. And I'd like to encourage our students, both PhD and masters, to take that bold move, just like Kiprono, to participate in seminars. We are ready to organize one for you, where you present even your crude idea on maybe a research idea you want to execute, or even your preliminary findings from your research work before you submit to the for examination, or even as a continuation, so that we are able to enhance your work. So thank you very much for your contribution. I know the questions, comments will go a long way into adding value into Mr. Kiprono's work. Let me say thank you for those who are out of the Wangari Maathai Institute for that you received this notification, invitation rather, and were able to attend. So the Wangari Maathai Institute is a center of academic excellence in the University of Nairobi. We are in the College of Agriculture and Vet Sciences at the Upper Kabete, and we have two programs. That is the PhD program in Environmental Governance and Management, and also Masters of Science program in Environmental Governance, where now Kiprono is has mastered those aspects of mangrove restoration, etc. We also have short courses in EIA and besides others. And we have our Abel director there, Professor David Mungai, and our deputy director is Professor John Mudama. And you can always read more about us in our website, Wangari Maathai Institute. I don't know whether the director has anything to say before we close the session, or even the deputy director, Professor Mudama. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mutune. First of all, I would like to thank the speaker for today, Abel Kiprono. You are doing a good job. And as Jane has said, we would like to encourage all the other students we have at the Institute to also make their presentations, the presentations of their work at whatever stage. Number two, I want to, I was looking at the people attending. When I joined in, it was 56, 57 people. I think this is very good. We have taken the positive side of COVID-19. I think we should be having our seminars online. The notification for today's seminar was to all people in the University of Nairobi was done yesterday, midday, and you can see the attendance. It is fantastic. So I want to thank both the staff and the students at Wangari Maathai Institute, and those very many colleagues that I have seen from other departments, PSRI. I see our Director of Assurance, Mr. Wangai, attending. I saw people from other universities. I think it was the Southeastern University of Kenya. I think this is very commendable, and we extend our invitation to all of you, not just to our seminars, but also when conditions are ideal, to our institute, so that we can see how we can collaborate. And Dr. Mutune, thank you for, as always, very efficient running of our seminars. So asanteni sana. I don't know if Professor Mudhama would like to make a comment.
Thank you, Director. Really, I don't have much to say, but just to echo your sentiments, just to express gratitude to colleagues and fellow participants. I think this has been very interactive, and we hope to continue like this so that we can share knowledge and exchange information and expertise. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so thank you, everyone. Now we bring this to a close, and I want to wish you all a good evening and stay safe. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your comments. I appreciate